our webinar today on 5 customer experience strategies that you need to try. And we have 2 great speakers for you today. The first is John Aves. How are you doing today, John?
Yeah, good. Thank you, Charlie. Very good.
Excellent. Yeah, for sure. For those who have just joined us, would you like to just reintroduce a bit about yourself and your role within the customer experience industry?
Sure. Good day to everyone. So I've worked in the customer experience space for pretty much all of my career. The first half of my career was spent at British Airways when that organization was going through the transformation from a very operationally engineering-led business to a customer-led business. And I was there through, 13, 14 years of that transition. And then more recently, I've been working with my own company, CP2 Experience, working with organizations as a consultant, as an advisor, helping them both design a new and hopefully differentiated experience, and also implement that experience through their people. So we've been working with organizations both in the UK and around the world who've really committed to adopting a customer experience strategy in order to improve their growth and profitability and create better places for their people and for their customers.
Excellent stuff, and I know you have plenty of insights from those experiences that you're going to share with everyone today, so we're definitely all in for a treat from the presentations today, and as well with our second presenter, Jim Fries from Interactions. How are you doing today, Jim? I'm
doing well, thank you.
Excellent stuff. And for those who might not really know about Interactions and kind of your role within the contact center industry and customer experience industry, do you want to give everyone a little bit of an introduction?
Sure. Once again, my name is Jim Fries. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer. I've spent most of my career in working in marketing for various tech companies. The last 8 years, I've worked in the customer experience space, and in particular, the last year and a half, I have been the CMO at Interactions. Interactions provides intelligent virtual assistants that serve as the front door to customer service operations for our clients. And the way we do that is by leveraging something called conversational artificial intelligence. The benefits we deliver to customers is we enable them to deliver a truly conversational experience that scales, and in the process, not only improve customer experience, but dramatically drive cost out of the business. And part of what I'm excited about is, in particular on today's webinar, is I think much of what John's going to talk about and things that you want to think about enabling are something we can do with the technology we apply. So I think there's really good synergy between what folks are going to hear from both John and myself today.
Excellent. I'm sure it's going to be a very good webinar with both of your presentations. And for those who want to catch up after the webinar and we'll go through the replay and look back at both John and Jim's slides, they'll be available later this afternoon at www.callcenterhelper.com/recorded-webinars. And to enter the chat room, go to www.callcenterhelper.com/chat and get involved and share best practices with one another and put tips to our panelists and questions, and hopefully we'll get those answered for you in between those presentations. We like to, in our webinars, we like to put the chat room on one side of our screen and the webinar on the other, just to make sure that all the information is flowing and we can get pick up on all the insights, as many insights as we can. And another added bonus of being in the chat room is that you can download the slides and download the chat log, so you can again get as much information as possible. And there's a quick option to join our quiz that we will run after John's presentation. So yeah, look out for details for that one. It's been very popular amongst our audience in the past, so it's great to bring that back to you again. And an extra bonus of being in our chat room today is that you get a box of chocolates or a bottle of champagne or an Amazon gift voucher for the best tip that we see. And there's also, for the winner of our quiz, you'll also get a bottle of champagne or a box of chocolates or an Amazon gift voucher too. So yeah, we've lots of prizes to give away today, so it should be a fun one. But first we want to put a poll to you, and this is the poll that we are going to put up is: how is your contact center perceived by the rest of the organization? And I'll just launch that for everyone now. Is it a hub? Is it seen as a hub of customer experience, a source of customer insight, a source of marketing information, a cost center, or a nuisance? Hopefully there's not too many there with who choose the bold emotion, but I'm sure we'll see. What are you expecting to see on this one, John? Any jumping out at you?
Well, I'd like to see a lot of people say the first one, of course, but the reality is that some organizations view their contact centers in that way, their call centers in that way, and others don't. So I imagine we're going to see a smattering of 1 and 4, probably most prominently, I would guess.
Let's have a look and see what we find. And yeah, there's particularly the 1 is there, the key, with 41% of our audience saying that, 30% saying a source of customer insight, which I guess aligns with the first one nicely, 0% saying a source of marketing information, which is great to see, 21% saying a cost center, so still a very high percent, as John was alluding to there, and 7% saying a nuisance. So I think there's definitely lots of key takeaways there, and it goes well as we lead into your presentation, John. So I'll just pass you over control now, and hopefully we can get this going.
Good. Well, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending upon where you are in the world. For those of you who just joined, my name is John Aves. Spent all of my career in the customer experience space, working initially for British Airways, and working for BA at the time when BA went through the transformation from a engineering operationally led business to a customer led business, and then more recently working with my own company, helping and working with companies around the world and in the UK who are committed to improving their customer experience and are seeking to really implement successful customer experience strategies. So that's kind of how I've spent my working life. I've always been excited by customer experience as a strategy for a long time, because its purpose is to create real value for customers, to create a better place to work for employees, and implemented well, it really does drive financial success. So I'm excited to be with you today on the webinar. For those of you who just joined, Charlie's mentioned that the slides we're going to go through are going to be available for you. So they will be available after the call. So let's get straight into it and let's look at our agenda. So I'm going to spend about 15 minutes looking at these 5 strategies that I believe are really key to a successful focus on the customer experience. Many of them sound obvious, and they are obvious. What I would say is that, however obvious they may seem, they're very much common sense, but less so common practice in my experience. So common sense, but not common practice. So let's start with the first strategy, which is really about focusing on the customer. Focusing on the customer. And the most successful companies I'm familiar with are really obsessive in their quest to deeply understand their customers. They go way beyond traditional market research and make a focus on the customer really a part of everyone's job. And we'll all be familiar with Amazon, I'm sure, as a case in point. And as you can see from the quote from Jeff Bezos, the #1 job of every person in Amazon, according to him, is to focus on the customer. And this is, you know, the view from an online business. So clearly interesting to see how they view the importance of focusing on the customer, even though they're an online business. Those of you in the UK will be familiar with O2, the mobile phone business. You know, O2 was fanatical about its customers, and as you can see from the quote from Ronan Dunn, who's the CEO, and O2 wasn't just happy about having satisfied customers. They wanted their customers to be real fans of their brand. And you may say, well, what's all this business about fans? Why do they want customers to be fans? And the answer is simply that fans, people who are super satisfied, tend to stay loyal. They buy more products and services, buy more add-ons, and they speak highly of the brand in the marketplace to their family and their friends. So I want to show you this graph here and talk to this for a second. Heading satisfaction is no longer good enough. What this graph does on the horizontal axis, it plots satisfaction levels. And up the left-hand side, the vertical axis, it plots loyalty, retention, customer retention. And the fans that O2 talk about are those on this graph that are so totally satisfied, they're so far up that green curve that they are 100% or close to 100% loyal. And the advantage of having customers who are as satisfied and as loyal as that is that those customers are far less likely to be poached by the competition. And certainly in the mobile phone industry, where going back a few years, and I'm not sure what the statistics are today, but certainly going back a few years, these companies in the UK had 35–40% churn rates every year of their customer base. Generating a loyal customer base means a lot. Many of these fans are really committed to O2 that we were just talking about, both emotionally committed to the brand and largely because of the way in which O2 rewards loyalty in the form of priority access to music and sporting events. This is in an industry where loyalty is fleeting in some cases. So we need to keep our focus on customers, because customers, and you all see this, I'm sure every day in your businesses, customers' expectations are changing. They're becoming more demanding. Technology, and Jim's going to talk about this in more detail later, technology is increasing the opportunities and the possibilities that people have. But despite all of this, all the research shows that trust in brands, trust in organizations is actually in decline. And customers are becoming less, not more loyal. So given that, how are we doing? Well, we think we're doing pretty well. But we're not doing as well as we'd like to think. 78% of companies think they're delivering a superior service, but only 8% of customers agree. And you'll be familiar with many of the reasons why listed on the slide there and some of the things that we talked about at the beginning of the webinar. So I'd like to challenge you with a few questions and leave you at the end of some of these sections. I'm going to leave you with some questions to think about, which I think will be helpful to you as you think about your customer strategy in your business or your part of the business. The first is, how well do you know your customers? In my experience, most organizations don't know their customers anywhere near well enough. And my question to you will be, can you answer these 4 questions for your business? You know, do you know who your most profitable customers are? Do you know the factors that drive their behavior, their buying behavior and their loyalty? Do you know how you're performing and how the competition is performing against those important drivers? Because if you can't answer those questions, you're not in great shape when it comes to designing and implementing an insightful, competitively distinct customer experience. So food for thought, hopefully. So let's move on and take a look at our second strategy, which is all about focusing on our people. You know, in the same way that customer loyalty has to be earned, employees have choices as well. They can stay with the organization and go the extra mile for customers, or they can leave in the same way indeed that customers can. So the question I'm posing in this section to you is does your organization genuinely focus on its people in order to earn their loyalty, or does the organization just pay lip service to that? You know, I was looking at some statistics the other day, and it said 70% of customers defect from one organization or from one supplier to another because of shortcomings in the service they received. So it wasn't to do with product, and it wasn't to do with concerns over price, together which only accounted for 30% of defections. 70% of defections occurred because of service. So your people really are your brand when it comes to representing you in the marketplace. You know, and that view is reinforced by these couple of pieces of research that both Mori and IBM put out here. And despite the advances in technology, we're going to hear a little bit about that later. You know, people really do make a huge difference. That people are key drivers of the experience we take away from our interaction with organizations. So let's move on and talk a little bit more about that. You know, O2 understood that in order to turn customers into fans, the first thing they needed to do was to turn their employees into fans. And they were really serious about their commitment to employees. One of the things they did was to talk to hundreds of managers and colleagues within O2 in its quest to develop a people promise, a bit like you might have a brand promise or a customer promise for customers. They developed a people promise. And the way in which they structured their people promise, based on these conversations that took place through the organization, was they mapped it around the key stages in the employee's career with O2. So starting with a warm welcome, joining the organization and being part of something special, feeling like this was a great place to work, an organization that gave me the opportunity to progress, that trusted me, and I was managed with a human touch, and giving me thanks for a job well done, either at the end of the day, end of the week, end of the year, or indeed at the point at which I leave the organization. So they mapped the journey that we go through as employees within their organization, and they set the standards of performance that they expect from the organization and from their managers against this framework. And managers were performance managed themselves on their success in delivering the people promise for their teams. Their success in delivering the people promise was tracked, it was measured, and it formed a key input to the performance reviews that all managers within O2 went through. So you can, and it impacted their bonus. So you can see that they were super serious about their equal commitment to their employees as the commitment they made to their customers. So here's a few questions that you may want to think about in this regard. You know, are you equipping your people to deliver on the customer experience? Are you focusing on the employee experience to drive that enthusiasm and pride? Do you have a two-way communication that supports the customer agenda, listening to people, taking their views as well as informing them about the plans? Are you training your people to deliver on the customer experience? And have you aligned your HR processes, performance management processes to support the customer experience? So these are all the kind of things that you should be thinking about as you are asking the question of, are we equipping our people to deliver on the experience we deliver to our customers? Food for thought again. So let's turn now to our third strategy, which is really about, you know, both designing and then implementing a differentiated customer experience. So armed with the knowledge of what your most important customers value, strategy one, and with a loyal group of employees, the goal of the third strategy is to make sure we both design and can implement a customer experience that differentiates our company from the competition. Standing out is about being different, but being different in a way that is valued by customers, which is why having such deep knowledge of our customers and what drives their loyalty is so important. So I want to share with you a framework that we sometimes use in the context of our discussions with clients, and designing all aspects of the customer experience at every touch point helps you start to get and design a predictable and consistent experience, first of all. And you see that in the consistent box on the screen there. However, the consistent delivery of functional requirements doesn't create competitive advantage. It doesn't create the fans that we've been talking to who are highly loyal, because most organizations, most customers expect you to be efficient and to deliver what it is you say you're going to deliver. A differentiating experience delivers against customers' functional needs, but also it provides emotional connection in a way that reinforces the brand, differentiates the company from the competition. And that's the way to really drive true loyalty, to create the fans in the way that O2 did. You know, what you see when you see the focus that O2 had on sporting events and music, that was delivering value to the customer over and above the provision of a handset or a call plan. And that was creating real value that is more emotionally laden than just the functional delivery of a telephone. And that's what many organizations, including O2, have done, which is to create value be above and beyond the proposition. So I'm going to explain this this chart in a second, the IKEA graph that you see in front of you. But just before I do that, I want to tell you a quick story. A few years ago, I was working with a leading technology company that most people on this call have heard of. And in conversation with the CEO, I asked which aspect of the customer experience he wanted his company to excel at. I want us to be a 10 at every touch point, he replied. And I thought to myself at the time, that's a crazy answer. And he told me he didn't know enough about where to create value for his customers to earn their loyalty. First of all, no organization can be a 10 at everything. And secondly, there is no point investing in the resources to become a 10 at a particular touch point where the customer is perfectly happy with a 7. So that's why our first strategy, focusing on really knowing your customers, is so important. Now, turning to the example we've got on the screen here, IKEA. IKEA understands very well the focus and the touch points and the high points that they want to focus on. And that's really about experiencing the product, price, and in fact, the canteen as well, to allow weary shoppers having treaded around their stores for hours to refuel and have a drink and a bite to eat. They don't overinvest in some of the touch points you see towards the bottom of the screen there, the store layout, the checkout, and so on, and other aspects that they believe are much less important to their target customers. So deciding where to over-index, where to focus, and where not to, comes from in-depth knowledge of your target customers, both their functional needs and the opportunities for emotional connection, and a real clarity about what you want your brand to be what you want your brand to stand for. And that's something organizations like IKEA are really clear about. You know, those of you in the UK will know, I'm sure, First Direct, and will know that some years ago, 25 years or so ago, when First Direct was established, Midland Bank, who was the owner of the bank at the time, carried out some research with their most profitable customers and asked these mid-market customers what it is they wanted from their bank. And customers said they wanted 3 things: convenience, being able to bank 24/7 anywhere; personal service, that the bank knows me and treats me as an individual; and thirdly, competitive products that offer me that meet the needs that I have. And the result was First Direct, a telephone and online bank that Midland created and then built the brand around it. And those of you who are familiar with First Direct will know the success story that it is. And the bank continues to win top awards and continues to get awards for being the best place to work year on year. So I'm sure you've seen the plaudits that First Direct has got through the press and through your own experience, perhaps. So, series of questions again. Have you designed your call center experience? Is your business designed to deliver your experience? You understand what customers need and value, and what will drive their loyalty. Is the question that Charlie posed at the beginning. What is your call center set up to deliver? Is it set up to deliver a transactional relationship with customers, or is it in fact designed to support the customer experience? And it was interesting to see a lot of you said it is the latter. You're there to really provide insight to the organization and deliver an experience, which is great to see. So again, questions there for you, food for thought, that you should be thinking about as you ask the question of, you know, have you designed and intentionally set up your business to deliver on the customer experience? Let's move quickly on to strategy 4 and take a look at measurement. You know, the financial reporting systems that exist in all companies to track revenue, count costs, and manage cash, important though they are, don't help us measure customer loyalty. And I've got a few little tips that follow that you should be thinking about implementing if your goal is to create a loyal customer base, a base of customers that in fact become your best salespeople. Customer-obsessed companies pay particular attention to those highly profitable customers who are so loyal that they have a disproportionate impact on the organization's growth and profitability. In most companies, the 80-20 rule prevails, which is that 20% of customers drive 80% of revenue and profits. Now in this slide, which is a study from Sapmetrics, the customer loyalty company, the blue dark shaded columns show the revenue earned from different groups of customers. And you can see the figures 1818, 1615 and 1475. You can see how promoters, those super fans we talked about earlier, generate much more revenue than do average customers or detractors, people who are dissatisfied. Now the reality is even more stark than the 1800, 1600 and 1400 you see in those dark blue columns, because the shaded boxes show the word of mouth impact. So what we know from the study that Sapmetrics did, and this is a computer market, what we know from their study is that the word of mouth impact created by people who are super fans of the technology they happen to be using is worth another $800 on top of the $1,800 they spend with their provider in the first place. And we also see, if you could go to the other end of the spectrum, that those people who are really unhappy, who spent $1,400 buying their computer kit, spread negative word of mouth that dissuades people from going to the company that they're with to the tune of $1,352, which almost wipes out the complete revenue that the organization has got from those customers. So segmenting customers by the levels of loyalty and calculating the full value, including the word of mouth impact, is really important, but it's very rare. And for those companies that do it, it gives them a real edge and the ability to focus on what to do to grow their loyal base of fans, and what it is they need to do with those people who are very unhappy. Because if they can't turn those detractors around, whilst every one of those detractors is bad-mouthing them in the marketplace, they're essentially wiping out all the revenue they get from those customers. So the first tip here is group your customers by loyalty and identify how much they contribute to profits, including word of mouth impact. The second tip is, I won't go through this slide again because we just talked about it, but continually collect feedback on the customer experience like IKEA do. And it's important to measure your organization's performance against the things you say you want to be known for, that in IKEA's case is particularly around product quality, product experience and price, and the canteen experience as well. Other things that are important, and you want to measure those, but you crucially want to know how you're performing against the things you really want to stand for. And one of the things I often see is that customer research efforts of many companies is an excuse for every department piling into the customer survey all the things that they think are important rather than the things that customers tell us is important. So collect customer feedback at the critical touch points is the tip here. The third tip is measure the employee experience. In addition to measuring the customer experience, you should measure the employee experience, because as we know from the service profit chain and other research, there is a strong correlation between employee engagement, employee satisfaction, and employee customer loyalty. In other words, if your employees are engaged and happy, your customers will be as well. And the fourth tip is involve your people. Involve your people, get their views about what's going well and where the company needs to improve. They can add color commentary to what more traditional research tells you. They will have suggestions for improvement and ideas on how to solve problems because they're working at the front line. And as we said in the last slide, employees who are engaged perform better and go the extra mile to help customers. So some tips there for thinking about what to measure. And very, very quickly and finally, what I want to do is just say a few words about building a customer-focused culture. That's really important. You want to build customer focus into the DNA of the organization. And here are a number of things that we would recommend that you think about. You know, without embedding customer first into the culture, it becomes very difficult to sustain the focus on the customer. You want to move from customer focus as an initiative to that's the way we do things around here. And leadership is clearly key. So engaging the organization's senior leaders is critical, and establishing leadership up and down the organization at all levels is key as well. And what I would say is people pay attention to and take notice of what they see leaders do more than what they hear leaders say. Next piece is about hiring for attitude and values before skill. You've heard the expression hire for attitude and values and train the skills. That's exactly what First Direct did 25 years ago and still does today. And Zappos, for those of you in the US will know, Zappos, the online shoe retailer, recruits people who share their values, which include delivering wow service, pursuing growth and learning, and being passionate and having fun. And Zappos is so protective about its culture that it offers new hires $2,000 at the end of their first week of training to leave as a way of testing their passion for the work, and their commitment to the brand. And Southwest Airlines in the US, who are testament to the fact that low cost doesn't have to equal poor service, recruits people who display a warrior's spirit, servant's heart, and a fun-loving attitude. And lastly, as we mentioned other strategy too, when we spoke about the importance of focusing on people, ensuring you develop people with the skills to deliver your unique experience and aligning the reward and HR systems and involving them are all key to the establishment of a customer-first culture. We could probably talk for the next hour non-stop about the culture because it's such a big subject, but hopefully here are a few tips and pointers that are food for thought to you as you think about embedding customer focus within your organization. So thank you for your attention, and I hope the 5 strategies we've talked about here are helpful to you as you go upon your journey.
Excellent. Excellent. Thanks for that, John. There was so much information there for us all to take in. I've made notes as I was kind of going along, such as create people promises and map key moments in the employee's career. And I thought the idea of assessing a manager against that was fascinating. I thought focus on creating a consistent experience and then look for differentiation. I thought that was a great point. And grouping customers by loyalty to identify how they can contribute to profits, including word of mouth profits. I thought that was a very interesting point too. And I think that leads us on very nicely to our quiz, which we have coming up, which all of you in the audience can join in as part of. And you can join in by going to www.kahoot, so that's KAHOOT.it. And once you're there, you add in a pin and add in your nickname. And if you could, if you're in a chat room, add in your chat username. That would be perfect. So we can follow who wins the prizes. Because don't forget, there's a bottle of champagne or a box of chocolates or an Amazon gift voucher for the winner of today's prize. So yeah, if we just enter the pin there, which is once you're in Kahoot, which is 326361, and then there's and then enter your nicknames. So while those are going in, as we see people starting to come through now, yeah, I think it would be very good to, I also say when you're in a chat room and later this afternoon, if you go to Call Center Helper, there's lots of great information on the slides that John presented there, especially those key questions at the end of the first 3 strategies that he goes, that had some really great information on there. So I think that would be a great place to go after today's webinar. As we can see, some people are starting to filter in now. We'll give it a couple more moments for people to fill in. 28 is a pretty good number, and this gives me the opportunity to become kind of a quiz show host, which is a childhood dream. The Bradley Walsh of call centers, or the Bob Barker if you're American. But anyway, to the next point. So the first question that we have for you today in our quiz is, what percentage of brands, according to Forbes, are still failing to meet customer experience expectations? So 90% or 70%? Vote now. Excellent stuff. See, the answers are flooding in here at the moment as we go through, and yes, I think that's everyone there. So the answer to this one is 90%, and we'll just explain why that is. So according to Forbes, 90% of brands are still failing in a big way to meet customer experience expectations. This was based on a survey of over 6,000 global consumers. A great piece of and a very insightful piece of research. The next question is, which CX pioneer said the #1 job of every person in this company is to focus on our customers? So that Richard Branson, Bill Gates, Walt Disney, or Jeff Bezos? That's actually in John's presentation, that one. So let's see how well the audience were paying attention now. Yes, 20 people. It's a bit of a relief there. Most people got that one right. So yeah, the answer was Jeff Bezos, whose quote continued by saying, "I've spent a lot of time over the last 18 months making sure people understand that our need to focus on operational efficiency does not come at the expense of the customer experience." The next question is, in 2017, which company hosted in-store sleepover events to better engage customers with their product range? Was it Debenhams, John Lewis, Marks and Spencer, or the Home Depot? That's a bit of a tricky one, this one, but be interesting to see how many people get this. And the answer was John Lewis there. So still a good number of our audience getting there. And Katie in the lead at the moment. See if only 2 questions left. So see if you can hang on and win that bottle of champagne or a box of chocolates. So in 2017, John Lewis invited customers to have sleepover events in their 3 stores in the UK, giving their event the tagline, "Try before you buy." Yes, and the next question is, according to Temkin Group, which of the following factors has the biggest impact on customer loyalty? Is it success, so getting the right outcome for a customer, effort, the amount of effort it takes for a customer to put in, or emotion, how the customer feels during the interaction? See, the answers are locked in now, I think. Let's have a look, see what people are saying. And yes, emotion. So most people got that one right. So you can see that you might have been visiting some of our previous webinars as well, where we talked about emotion a lot. Katie's still at the top of that leaderboard there as we go into our final question now. Before that, we'll just explain why it was emotion. And the research from Temkin Group found that 78% of customers were likely to purchase from a company again after a successful interaction, 79% when there was little effort involved, and 86% when the right emotions were evoked. So the final question of today's quiz then is, true or false? According to a poll, more than 25% of managers have never called their own contact center. True or false or true? Again, it's a trick that I played last week, which caught a number of people out. So some people might be getting this wrong because of that false or true option. And let's see what people are saying as we go to the next option. And yes, so 29. So most people said true, which I don't know whether is it concerning or not concerning, but we'll find out what the research of the call center helper poll, one that we did ourselves, says. And our poll found that 27% of contact center managers had never called their own contact center to experience the customer's journey, with 7% phoning the customer up just once a year. Also, which is kind of a slightly worrying statistic. But we come down to our podium, and Watmo came in 3rd place there, and JB in 2nd place, and in 1st place we have, with all of the answers correct there, we have Katie. So congratulations, pretty much from the start in the lead there. So a very impressive performance, and you'll have a box of chocolates, a bowl of champagne, or an Amazon gift card on your way. Excellent. So I thought there's lots of extra key takeaways, but let's also just quickly flick over to our chat room to see what you've been saying and gather those top tips and extra questions. So the first question that we have is from Sarah, who says, how do you measure the managers on the delivery of the people promise? I guess this goes to you, John, on the back of your O2 people promise.
Yeah, it's done as part of their employee survey, and which is performed annually, and there is a question in that saying, about that particular department's, each individual department's success in delivering the people promise, and the employees themselves are commenting on that through the employee survey, and the data is then cut by department, so the manager knows what score he's got for his department.
Excellent stuff. Yeah, I hope that helps you out there, Sarah. And then the next tip in is from Lisa, who says, I'm a huge proponent of employee empowerment. You need to improve employees with the tools they need and the power they need to feel that they can truly serve the customer. I think that's a nice one there from Lisa. We have a tip now from Sven, who says, try to make your agents addicted to customer service and to your products. Your customers will love to be treated that way. I think that's also a nice one. We have one now from Leslie, who says, happy staff equals happy customers. Happy staff is the first of our fundamental goals, followed by happy customers and happy suppliers. Culture is key to delivering employee engagement and therefore outstanding customer experience. I think that's a very nice point there that links well with John's last slide. We have another tip now sent in from Kevin, who says customers will always remember the last touch point of any journey, peak end rule. Therefore, focus on this to make the biggest difference. It is the chance to put the cherry on the top to rescue a poor journey. What are your thoughts on this one, Jim? I don't know if you've heard much about the peak end rule before.
Oh, no, I have. And I think it's actually something we can all relate to just in terms of the companies we individually do business with. I think that's dead on. I mean, even sometimes if the experience has been not so good, if it ends well and there's an effort, I think it has an impact. So yes, it makes a difference. I mean, once again, I think we can all relate from personal experience. And I'm just thinking of one of my own personal experiences over the course of the last 2 weeks, where it was a pretty lousy customer experience until the last touch point where they acknowledged the terrible experience. And I felt pretty good about it because they made it right. So I agree with that.
Yeah.
Excellent stuff. And I think that leads us actually very well into our poll, our next poll now, before we go into your presentation, Jim, which is, what is the biggest barrier to making the customer experience easier? So I'll just launch that poll for everybody. And the options you have are lack of available budget, slow or outdated technology, lack of communication between departments, low employee engagement, and failing processes or policies. What kind of results are you expecting to come up here, Jim?
This is an interesting one because I think so many of them are interrelated. I think I would suspect that lack of available budget will be high, and I think also slow and outdated technology. I think when agents aren't enabled to get access to the information they need to get access to provide good customer service, it's frustrating for the agent, and clearly it ends up being frustrating for the customer as well. So I think a lot of these are so interrelated, but I'm actually very interested to see what the results will be.
Excellent. Sorry, let's go ahead and share the results with everybody. And you're right in saying there's a lot of variety in there, as we can all see now, with 13% saying lack of available budget, 17% saying slow or outdated technology, 38% lack of communication between departments, which is an interesting one, 15% saying low employee engagement, and 17% saying failing processes or policies. I think that's a great bit of research there as we move on now to your presentation. So I will pass control over to you, and hopefully we'll be able to see your slides in a moment.
Yes, I'm about to share my screen, and I think we should be good to go.
Yeah.
Once again, thank you very much. I appreciate your attention. I'm Jim Freeze, Chief Marketing Officer at Interactions. I talked a little bit about what we do. Let me talk just in a little more detail. We developed something called intelligent virtual assistants. They operate in our cloud infrastructure, and they serve as the front end of our customer service, our customers' customer service operations. So instead of, but the way to think about what we do is instead of one of your customers experiencing via phone, hearing when they first dial in, you can press 1 for this, you can press 2 for that. What you hear when one of our customers implements our intelligent virtual assistant is you hear a conversational experience where the opening line might be, "How may I help you?" Once again, it delivers truly human-like experience as opposed to a robotic one. A little bit about the company. We've grown very rapidly over the course of the past 5 years. We topped $100 million last year in revenue, have a huge patent portfolio. You see some brands of customers that we have across the United States as well as in Europe. And a growing company in terms of employees. We ended last year with about 400 employees. We're going to end this year with north of 500 employees. So growing very rapidly, and in part because of the value we're delivering to customers. Now, what's interesting, what I want to talk about in my time is I want to pick up on a couple of the points that John made during his presentation, 2 of the strategies in particular, focusing on what customers really want. And I'm going to share with you some data on what we understand they specifically don't want. And then talking about delivering a differentiated experience. There's so many industries today, and John was talking about O2. You think of the mobile industry, or where there are so many carriers who essentially deliver a very similar service in terms of coverage, in terms of what they include, and in many cases, those industries are so competitive, it's a race to the bottom in terms of price. Same thing with the airline industry. They all fly the same Boeing and Airbus jets. So the last thing those companies want to do is getting into a race to the bottom and differentiating exclusively on price. And because of that, there's a growing need among folks like myself, chief marketing officers, who understand the importance of customer experience as a differentiator, as a way of increasing customer loyalty. And this is one of 100 different stats I could have put in this presentation from folks, once again, similar to myself, who are talking about the importance, especially in a business to consumer company, of customer experience as something that really is going to drive differentiation. So how do most companies deliver customer experience today? Virtually every customer we go in and talk to is using the same legacy technology. They're using, almost in all cases, an IVR, essentially a system that greets a customer with a menu of options. Press 1 for this, press 2 for that, or speech-enabled IVR, which is something like you can say things like billing. And I don't know of any single customer who, when they're greeted with that experience, sits back and says, awesome, I have an IVR I have to go through, or I'm going to be presented with a series of menus. It's a terrible experience. Customers absolutely hate it. And part of the reason we know that is we worked with the Harris poll last year, actually did a survey of a little over 1,000 consumers. And we asked a number of different things, including top frustrations when using voice interactions to communicate with the company. Part of the reason I'm focusing on voice is obviously many companies are focused on trying to enable many, many channels, but without a doubt, the most important channel is and will continue to be voice. And we actually believe that voice is growing in importance because of things like Alexa, and when you get in your car and you want to put an address into the navigation system, you don't necessarily type it in, you talk to the car. Voice as a modality as well as a channel is growing in importance. So we specifically asked this question, what are the top frustrations when using voice interactions? We obviously allowed multiple answers, and I think everybody can relate to this, having to repeat yourself, going through a series of menu choices only to eventually get to an agent after waiting in a queue to have to start all over again. Very frustrating, terrible experience. Not being able to bypass the IVR system to get to a live agent. Not being able to get your questions answered. All of that tends to be a very, very frustrating experience. And we see this pretty consistently with our customers. So let me talk a little bit about what we see from our customers as to what their customers want, and then let me talk about what our customers actually want. At the end of the day, a seamless journey is what customers are looking for across channels. They want to be able to interact with companies in life based on what they're doing, so they can use the preferred channel of choice. Their preferred channel of choice in certain circumstances may change, and companies need to recognize that, and they need to be able to redirect to a preferred channel when the customer requires that. What do brands want? What do companies want? Well, companies have, and I suspect many of the folks in this on this webinar would relate to this. There are many competing interests within call centers or contact centers that challenge companies, like the desire, the mandate to improve customer experience, while at the same time you're trying to drive out cost of the business, and you're trying to increase not only retention of customers, but retention of your agents, and to elevate the role of the agent. All of those things are very, very difficult to do, and we have a very strong belief that one of the ways in which companies can do that, and we see that with our customers, is through technology. And in particular, I talked a little bit about this, but we do something very unique, which is with what all of our patents revolve around, which is the blending of humans in real time with conversational artificial intelligence. It's the ability for the combination of these two technologies to deliver a human-like conversation that enables our intelligent virtual assistants to be able to mimic the behavior of the best agent that companies have. The result of that is you have technology that scales with peaks in the business up and down, that doesn't make customers wait in queues and gives them the ability to get answers to questions in a very seamless way. Now, one of the things that, as part of that Harris poll, we actually went out and tested with consumers was their willingness, consumers' willingness to embrace artificial intelligence as a way to basically interact with a company and ultimately, hopefully, deliver a good experience. And some of the results we found were really interesting. So we queried customers about if you have an effective and a quick voice AI solution, and the key here is it's effective, it actually works. What would it mean for all of these things you see on the screen? It increases the likelihood that they're willing to participate in a customer service, 70%, and higher among millennials. We looked at different generations. Recommend the company to a family or a friend. Once again, 69% for all generations, 75% for millennials. And the one that I found most interesting was choosing voice interactions over texting and typing as a preferred channel. I think there's a belief that millennials just want to sit at their phones and type. Not true. If it's easy to use voice, they actually prefer voice because we can talk 3 to 4 times faster than we can type. So, you know, the survey really reinforced that consumers want to be able to get answers to questions quickly and effectively. If you can do that with technology, they will embrace it. As I close out, I want to give you just a couple examples of how our customers have actually benefited from the application of this technology. Customer of ours, MetLife, big insurance company, they had a number of challenges. Their previous technology was using a very traditional IVR, and they wanted to offer customers kind of an easy way to navigate through a broad portfolio of products and dramatically improve their customer experience. At the same time, they had pressure to cut costs. And the results that they've had, and they've been a customer for a couple of years, they reduced their average handle time, AHT, average handle time, by 45 seconds. So they were able to cut down the amount of time that consumers had to be on the phone. That's a savings to the company and an improvement to customer experience. They saw that in terms of the reduced misroutes, where somebody comes in and they get routed to the wrong agent and have to start all over again. There were dramatic improvements in that, and it translated into improved customer satisfaction scores. And over 25% of the customer inquiries were handled without an agent ever having to be involved. And that actually benefits agents because it's really frustrating for agents to have to deal with a customer who's waited for 10 minutes to get a simple question answered. It creates a bad experience for the customer, and it's not fun for the agent who has to deal with an irritated customer. So they've had tremendous benefits. Another customer, a Kiwi who's in the travel space, they had a goal of providing a customer care solution that would make it really easy to interact with them and make travel a breeze for their customers around the world. And so they implemented an intelligent virtual assistant with us and found that 20 to 25% of customers are now able to complete what they need to get done without having to go to an agent, which has translated into improved customer experience for them. It also provides a better experience because they can easily spike because it's technology and they don't have to make a guess as to how many agents they may need. And it's translated into the initial rollout in savings in terms of additional headcount that they didn't have to add. So real tangible benefits that are being delivered by technology. With that, thank you for your attention, and I'll turn it back over.
Excellent.
Charlie?
Great stuff there, Jim. Thanks for that. I'm just going to move straight on to a quick poll for you, and that's if you would like to see a demonstration of the interaction solution. If you just want to just say yes or no there, and we can arrange that for you. And I think I thought, yeah, Jim, there was lots of great stuff there. One point in particular that resonated with me was that voice is actually growing in importance, especially with the growth of virtual assistants. I think that kind of whole thing of how Siri and Amazon Echo and other kind of voice assistants like that will have their impact on the contact center in the future is going to be something that's very interesting to follow. So now let's quickly move into the chat room, and with your top tips and questions have been flowing in, which has been great to see. And let's move straight on to the first question. That's from Stacy, who says, when using intelligent virtual assistants, do you advise the customer that this is not a real agent, or do you find this impactful at all, either positively or negatively? What are your thoughts on this one, Jim?
Yeah, we actually have pretty strong feelings about that. Our intelligent virtual assistant is so conversational and so human-like that consumers are often confused, thinking they're talking to a human being. We think it's a best practice, and we recommend to our customers that they notify the customer from the beginning, saying, "Hi, I'm an intelligent virtual assistant. I can understand complete sentences, so talk to me like you would normally talk to another person." But we absolutely recommend that, because part of what we asked actually in that Harris poll was we asked consumers things that they thought might be creepy, and high on the creepy scale was interacting with an intelligent virtual assistant thinking it was a human. So our advice is let customers know.
Excellent, great stuff. I think that whole idea of creepy, especially with more and more data that we're collecting in contact centers, is going to be an interesting conversation for the future.
Yeah.
So we have a tip now sent in from Eric, who says that customer experience can't be contained to just the contact center. They can do a great job, but if other supporting departments fall short, this customer experience will be negatively impacted. The key is to identify all touch points across the enterprise, pre-contact, contact, and post-contact, then measure and assign metrics that are unique to the touch point. This is interesting. I think it goes back to your kind of idea of measuring across the journey earlier, John. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, Eric's got it spot on. I mean, there are multiple journeys that customers may engage in, and as we said, increasingly these days, people want the ability to use multiple technologies. They want to use multiple channels into the organization, and they expect them to be consistent. So you have to use the thinking, the logic that both Jim and I have been talking about over the course of this webinar, applied to all of the potential journeys that the customer could be engaging in. And clearly that represents a lot of work, and you're going to pick your shots and identify the ones that are more significant and more important first. But Eric's logic is absolutely spot on there.
Excellent stuff. Excellent. Yeah, I'll move straight on now to the next question that's coming from Mohammed, who says, is there a correlation between customer satisfaction and customer demographics, for example, age? And how strong is this correlation? I suppose it would differ on the demographic, but Jim, do you have any insights into this one?
Yeah, in particular, we did kind of break down, we looked at different generations when we did our Harris survey, and part of the reason for that is customers are constantly looking for advice on that. Are there differences? And there are. But some of them we actually found were surprising. And so as an example, the voice comment among millennials as a preferred channel, I think we expected to see that millennials would prefer texting or text channels over voice, and we found that wasn't the case. So I think what this highlights is the importance of understanding who your customers are, and based on the demographics of who those customers are, that I think will provide a lot of guidance as to how you may want to implement a customer experience. If you're dealing with an older generation, baby boomers, versus kind of a Gen Z, very young, there are definite differences.
Excellent. I think that actually also links back well to a point in John's presentation where he had to kind of work out who your most loyal customers are. So I think, yeah, it's a very interesting topic. And moving on to our next tip in from Katie, who says, we have a huge coaching culture. Spending that time with agents is invaluable as it really drives their positive mentality. We respect them and support them, and for the most part, they reflect this in their behavior towards the customers. It tends to be those who have not managed to engage in coaching culture who also provide a rougher level of service to customers. I think that's another very interesting point, and that's probably the great point to end on. So I'll just move on now. So we like to collect as much feedback as we can from our webinars. And so if you could, as you leave today's webinars, just say in 1 or 2 words, what did you like best about the webinar? And we also have our winning tip before we go. And today that has been won by Claire, who says, look to see how your staff can be multitasked, and then by being multitasked, they can help customers much quicker as they know the process and stop another touch point being made. I think that's a very interesting point there, Claire. So congratulations for winning our second bottle of champagne or box of chocolates or Amazon gift voucher of the day. So yeah, this again, complete the survey, and when you leave the webinar, please fill in. It's just 4 questions long, so hopefully it won't take you very long at all. And just a reminder that you can watch the replay and get the speaker slides, which will be available later this afternoon at www.callcenterhelper.com/recorded-webinars. And the next webinars in the series, we have our first one of 2020 up. So if you enjoyed this webinar and looking to register for more in the future, just go to the address on the screen there. But all that's left to me today is to thank our speakers. So thanks for joining us today, John.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.
And thanks for joining us also, Jim.
It was a pleasure. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Great stuff. And hopefully we'll see more of our audience members back for 2020. Thanks and bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.